Search and rescue officers race against time to find more survivors after one of the worst weather-related disasters to ever hit the southern hemisphere. And joining us now in studio to talk about how the disaster has had an impact on Malawi is the Malawi Acting High Commissioner to South Africa, Her Excellency Gloria Bamusi, and the Deputy Chairperson of the Malawi Floods Taskforce, Priscilla Mwasinga. Ladies, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Deputy
Commissioner, Acting Commissioner, I'm going to start with you. This is probably one of the worst disasters in years or even decades. We've seen some of the cities in Mozambique completely submerged and the death toll being a record high. How has the impact been in Malawi?
Thank you so much. In Malawi, the impact really has been very devastating. Most of the districts are really submerged. Most people have been displaced. People do not have shelter. As we are talking now, people need food. The most affected are the children, women. So the picture there in Malawi is really devastating and not good at all.
Yeah. So which are the areas which have been the hardest hit, and why? Does it have to do with the topography of the areas or the terrain?
The areas that have been hardly hit is the southern part of Malawi. The reasons really are topographical, environmental, and the like. The southern part of Malawi really is located close to Mozambique as it is. So as you can see, most of the districts that have been affected are the ones that are sharing borders with Mozambique. You know, in Mozambique we have the Indian Ocean. In Malawi we also have rivers that also flow into the ocean. So these districts are interconnected. So highly, the reasons are geographical,
yeah,
and natural in nature.
Okay. Ma'am Priscilla, just how difficult it is getting assistance and food and medicine to the affected people?
It becomes difficult, but we rely on goodwill of the people. We rely on well-wishers, both the community of Malawians in South Africa. As you may know, we had this disaster also in 2015, and it's very sad that it's continuing and we're having it again now. But in 2015, really, we were supported, highly supported by everybody, well-wishers, business, South Africans, other nationals from other countries, churches. So we're appealing even now to different groupings, churches, NGOs, companies, businesses. We're appealing for their assistance because we cannot do it alone. As a task force, Malawian in diaspora here in South Africa, we are already on the ground. We're already collecting clothing, non-perishable goods, blankets, whatever can help in the disaster. Water purification kits, we've already started, and we've identified churches where we can have drop centers, but also our consulate is receiving goods. And also there is a bank account. I hope I can give you details.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
It is a bank account. It is the Malawi Floods account details. Mm-hmm. The account name is Malawi High Commission. The account number is 0184789720001, and it is Standard Bank branch. And for anybody depositing in that account, they can just reference MW Floods, which stands for Malawi Floods.
Please repeat those details, just for those who didn't quite get it.
Okay, so the account detail for receiving donations for the disaster in Malawi, the account name is Malawi High Commission. The account number is 0184789720001, and it is in Standard Bank.
Yeah.
And the reference is MW Floods, which is Malawi Floods. We would really appreciate any donation, any amount. We are receiving it, as well as the goods which you have just said: clothing, food, blankets, chemicals for water purification.
Yeah. Because
really people are in dire straits.
Indeed.
Women and children. It is not a very pleasant situation in Malawi right now.
Not at all. And what's the extent of the damage? Is it unprecedented? And who is also on the ground manning the search and rescue efforts?
Well, there are a number of players that are assisting us. I must mention here that the South African government was one of the teams that responded to the call by our president that Malawi, some of the districts in Malawi have been declared a disaster area. So it is pleasing to note that South African government sent a rescue team and equipment to assist in rescue efforts that government is undertaking on the ground. So apart from South African government, we have UN agencies that are actively working on the ground. We do also have the Red Cross Society. We do have other faith-based organizations. We do also have bilateral arrangements from various countries across the world. So really the response really is overwhelming. And as my colleague has already alluded to, the damage really is very extensive. It cannot be handled by only one government, by one organization, nor one intergovernmental organization. For this to be addressed, it really calls for a multifaceted organization and multifaceted approach, so that the people really on the ground are assisted. Yeah. So we are really appealing to individuals, organizations, churches, international organizations, intergovernmental organizations, NGOs, and people of goodwill to assist.
And we've been getting reports about 6 soldiers who were killed while fixing a bridge that was damaged by the floods. Have you heard anything to that effect?
We have, and it's also one of those things that come with rescue operation efforts. You know, MDF, the Malawi Defense Forces, are also helping, and it is sad that through their efforts we lost lives. Yeah. So it is like an institution is helping to solve out a problem, and we are also creating another problem at the same time. So the issues are becoming really complicated on the ground. It is sad that people are dying even on the call of duty. It is not a very, very good picture, but that's what it is.
Did the government of Malawi anticipate the extent of such a cyclone? I mean, Ma'am Priscilla earlier on said that in 2015 there was another massive cyclone ravaging Malawi. So were there contingency measures put in place to avert any kind of crisis after the 2015 disaster?
After the 2015, actually, I would tell you that government had even put in place a policy of national disaster risk reduction management policy, which was also launched in 2015. In this particular document, there are strategies that were set aside for government, churches, and individuals to implement. So government, since 2015, there have been a number of calls, for example, calling upon people not to live in areas close to the river banks. There have been really efforts in all sectors, but the scale and the extent of the damage that has happened this year really was not anticipated, as I can tell you. We've tried as government to put up structures in place, but you know, you and
what kind of structures are they?
Structures like putting up bridges and trying to tell people to set up their houses away from the river banks. There are also roads. I can tell you that this year's floods has damaged the already infrastructure that was already put up by government. As we're talking now, the roads have been washed away. The bridges that were constructed have also been washed away. So in other words, we really have to restart from the drawing table in terms of rebuilding such communities, rebuilding our societies in Malawi. It is really a very pathetic situation, yeah, where you can imagine yourself, you have built up a house, you have finished and you are living in there, and the next thing you see is that the house collapses. It means whatever monies you put up in that structure is all gone. So we are not only talking of one village, we are not only talking of one house here, nor are we only talking about only one structure. There are thousands and thousands of structures that have been washed away, privately owned, individually owned, or even owned by government. Even schools have been demolished, and some of these structures are submerged. That's why they call for all sorts of support, including issues of rescue efforts, and the equipment is critical. And as you can see, some areas are only accessible by air, can only be accessible by boats. So it calls for such kind of resources for our people to be relieved from this kind of situation. We are really in a dire need of need.
All right. Priscilla, do we know what the situation is on the ground? Have the floods subsided, and is the death toll likely to rise?
I'm sure you're aware that when a disaster like this happens, definitely the death toll could rise, because also there is sickness. You know, when there's a lot of water also in the tropical area where Malawi is, you know that people are sick. Also, some of them, they're not accessing medical treatment because of the what our excellency, the Deputy High Commissioner, has said. So it's a very tragic situation. The death toll is likely to rise. That's why even there's this appeal that is made. And just for reference from our side for the appeal as it is coming, also if those who are interested to find out more or to keep tabs, I've got phone numbers which I can also pass out.
Yeah, you can.
Yes, so if you want to contact our consulate, you can contact Mr. George Chilonga, that's Chilonga, and the number is 083-638-8133. And for the High Commissioner's office, you can contact Miss Roserine Mapundla. Her number is 063-690-0433. And for our task force, the task force which is running right now in South Africa, the contact person is Bishop Singini, who is our chairperson. You can contact him on 083-493-8028, because really the situation is like this, but it could get worse. Of course, we're also asking for prayers. We also need prayers, but we need also assistance, as our acting High Commissioner here has said.
All right. Your Excellency, what's the level of cooperation between Malawi and the other countries affected by Cyclone Idai, like Mozambique and Zimbabwe?
Well, our cooperation actually is cordial. You may wish to know that since Malawi is bordered by Mozambique, there are also reports that there are some other people who are also coming from Mozambique landing into Malawi. There are also Malawians also landing into Mozambique. So it's like we have always lived like brothers and sisters. And in times like these, we've always stood together. So the relations have always been cordial. And you know for sure, most of the times, whenever there's a calamity, especially like death, people do unite.
Yes.
I can tell you that our countries are more than united in this calamity.
Right. So any word of appeal maybe to neighboring countries as well to join the campaign of rebuilding Malawi?
Well, my message is clear, is that we are appealing to all well-wishers, be it our bilateral partners, the countries that we relate to the all countries all across the globe, even international organizations, starting with the UN, at AU level, even sub-regional level, the SADC itself. We do appeal, because as it is now, Malawi, it's like almost half of the country, 14 out of 28 districts have been affected. So it's like half of the country is really in a tragic situation. So our appeal is to everybody, be it our neighboring countries, the international organizations, sub-regional organizations, faith-based organizations, or organizations of individuals of goodwill. So that's our appeal. And indeed, we are working hand in hand with the task force that we set out just last week. And Madam Mwasinga here, the deputy chair, is also working all around the clock. The details that have been given, the contact details of individuals that have been given, their lines are open 24 hours, and we are waiting to receive from you.
And I'm sure your government will be going back to the drawing board, to put up structures in place to make sure that Malawi doesn't encounter such a tragic disaster in future. What are some of the areas that you need to focus on in order to ensure that, this crisis is averted?
Well, the strategies really are many and varied. It got to do with our lifestyle, as I said, where people are located. It calls for really deliberate policies where people are discouraged to habit or to live close to riverbanks. It also calls for drastic measures where people are discouraged from deforestation. You may wish to know that floods and issues of heavy rains are correlated to issues of deforestation. And the deforestation is highly discouraged at all levels. Yeah. And I'm so sure that beyond now, this is going to be in everybody's minds, be it at school, be it at churches, be it at everywhere people meet, that people practice good agricultural practices, good environmental practices, so that the damage or the extent of such kind of occurrences of disasters should not reach to these levels. And also, other strategies could be acquisition of such high-level acquisition of equipment, of rescuing our own people. It has proved already that we do not have enough capacity to rescue people from the affected areas. So that's another area, though it calls for financial resources, but we just have to plan for it.
So the Malawian Meteorological Services, were they clued up enough before the storm came, before the storm landed, in order to evacuate people?
Well, what I know is that they issued warnings about this. The actual evacuation before the disaster itself wasn't there, but the warnings were there. So what I'm saying is, in future, it calls for such kind of efforts to go beyond warning people, even evacuating them. And such kind of efforts call for resources, which also calls for planning, budgeting, and even a call for resources.
So the government failed in that regard?
I wouldn't say it failed. Failure is a bad word to say. At least we warned our people. We did all we can in our capacity.
But you do understand that some of the Malawians who are impoverished do not have the capacity to evacuate themselves. So that is when the government needed to step in.
Yes, government is stepping in even right now.
No, I'm talking about evacuation, like before the storm actually landed.
Before the storm landed.
Yeah.
Yes, for that to happen, government cannot do that alone. As I already said in the beginning, evacuation calls for a number of resources, enormous resources.
Which some of the Malawians do not have. And they're relying on the government to provide such resources.
Yes, and even government is calling for well wishes as well, because government, one hand alone, cannot clap.
Right. Deputy Commissioner and Priscilla, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Well, here are some of the details for those who want to pledge financial support. The Standard Bank account name is Malawi High Commission. The account numbers are on your screens right now, 018-478-972-001, and the branch is Hatfield, and the reference you have to use is MW Floods. The numbers are on your screens right now. And once again, the Standard Bank account name, Relief Aid, is Malawi High Commission. The account numbers are on your screens right now. The reference you have to use is MW Floods. All right, this is On Point on SABC News. Thank you so much for joining us. Moving on to other news now. South Africa's Minister of the Department of International Relations and Cooperation has met with the President of Mozambique. The aim was to discuss further ways in which the country can continue to provide support and assistance in the wake of Cyclone Idai. It has been a week since Idai wreaked havoc, with Mozambique hit the hardest. The SANDF has been on a rescue and recovery mission in Beira. The force deployed more members today. South Africa is calling on its citizens to assist the 3 countries affected by the cyclone, and these countries are Malawi, Zimbabwe and